On November 27, 2025, in the Avdiivka region of eastern Ukraine, the atmosphere on the front lines was thick with tension. Forward reports confirmed unusual Russian activity, from artillery preparations to the sound of heavy engines approaching. Although Ukrainian units were on high alert, they did not open fire, but resolutely maintained absolute silence according to a pre-planned strategy. No one spoke, no one fired. Ukrainian Defense Forces waited for the precise moment to act. At 06:05 a.m., the Ukrainian UAV station confirmed that a Russian mechanized formation consisting of 7 T-90M tanks, 3 BMP-3s, and support vehicles was approaching the edge of the Kirovsky forest at an unusual speed. Immediately, the commander cut the ATGM team's firing preparation orders. They had to let the enemy advance deep into the discreetly arranged, predetermined kill zone. The reconnaissance UAV quickly lowered its altitude, marking each tank in real time. On the ground, Ukrainian soldiers withdrew in an organized manner through underground routes, completely avoiding the T-90M's thermal vision. They ignored the sound of Russian engines roaring closer and closer, as if deliberately luring the enemy deeper into the closing trap. When the Russian tank formation officially entered the marked area, the Ukrainian commander confirmed the moment had come. The FPV drone unit immediately switched to standby mode, awaiting orders to launch the first strike. 06:25, complacency led the T-90M formation deeper than Ukraine had anticipated. The tank crews maintained high speed, dangerously stretching out the convoy. The mechanized infantry following behind fell nearly 400 meters behind, leaving the tank's spearhead almost isolated. UAVs remained steadfast in its silent tactic. UAVs continued to closely monitor every movement, but ground forces absolutely did not fire. Russia advanced in a state of severe information deficiency. One T-90M, under extreme tension, detected a faint movement and immediately fired a 125mm shell into the forest. But the shot only tore up rocks and soil, completely failing to force Ukraine to reveal its position. The next moment happened when they least expected it. A BMP-3 in the rear hit a pressure mine and exploded. The explosion forced the tanks in front to suddenly slow down, raising fears that the route was booby-trapped. The offensive rhythm was immediately broken. The formation became disordered, and large, dangerous gaps appeared between the T-90Ms. Meanwhile, at the edge of the forest, Ukrainian FPV control teams seized this moment of chaos. They silently moved into advantageous positions, the angle for a direct attack on both sides of the vehicles, areas where the T-90M's turret armor rotates slowly and has thinner protection. Russia attempted to activate jamming systems to counter the drone threat, but the dense forest caused signal scattering, significantly reducing their effectiveness. In fact, some jamming devices lost their signal momentarily, creating fatal gaps in their electronic shield. The trap was set, and the decisive strike was ready. At 6:33 a.m. Every vehicle in the Russian formation had been precisely marked by Ukrainian UAVs. The location of each T-90M, the gaps between formations, the direction of movement. And even the BMP-3 stuck behind the mine explosion. All were neatly within the FPV force's range of destruction.
The formation received the final data.
looked at the screen and decisively ordered, "The formation has fallen into the trap. Prepare to destroy them all." Immediately, the first wave of FPV drones struck the lead T-90M, prompting an immediate Russian counterattack. Frequency jamming systems were activated at maximum power. While a rear 2S-19M self-propelled artillery battery began firing suppressive rounds into the forest edge, where they suspected the drone control position was located. The 152mm shells fell continuously, creating large columns of smoke and causing the ground to shake as if it were breaking apart. However, the Ukrainian FPV control forces had time to retreat deep into secondary trenches, completely avoiding the return fire. Russia deployed additional Orlan 10 reconnaissance UAVs to identify the source of the attack, but these UAVs were immediately jammed by Ukraine's electronic warfare systems. One Orlan lost signal, crashed, and exploded before transmitting any important data. Without reconnaissance eyes, Russia was forced to fire blind artillery, preventing them from accurately locking onto targets. Meanwhile, Ukraine did not stop. A group of heavy FPVs equipped with larger anti-armor warheads launched from the west of the Kirovsky forest. The target this time was a T-90M attempting to block the retreat of a stranded BMP-3. Three heavy drones approached from three different directions, leaving the Russian tank crew no time to rotate the turret. One hit the observation system, the second hit the side armor, and the last exploded right next to the ground, causing a powerful shockwave that flipped the tank over. Its combat capability was completely eliminated. Seeing their advance seriously threatened, the Russians called for support from K-52 armed helicopters. A K-52 appeared at low altitude, firing a series of S-8 rockets at areas suspected of harboring drones. But Ukraine was prepared for this scenario. As soon as the K-52 entered range, a Ukrainian mobile air defense unit immediately opened fire with FIM-92 Stinger shoulder-fired missiles. After only 3 seconds of tracking, the first missile slammed into the K-52's tail rotor. The helicopter shook violently, lost control, spun around, and crashed into an open area to the east, exploding into a huge column of fire. The sudden appearance of the Ka-52 caused Ukraine to raise its alert level to maximum. They immediately deployed additional Zu-23-2 towed behind pickup trucks, creating a dense protective net for the drone control area. At the same time, a Ukrainian Leleka 100 reconnaissance UAV soared high, providing new and detailed data on the Russian formation that was beginning to disintegrate. 0641, with smoke and dust still lingering from previous explosions, the Russians attempted to regain control of the situation. A mechanized infantry group was ordered to advance from the rear, hoping to reach and support the T-90Ms stuck at the edge of the Kirovsky forest. They advanced in a spread-out formation, trying to take advantage of every mound and artillery pit to avoid being spotted by Ukrainian drones. But their every movement was under the watchful eye of Ukrainian UAVs hovering overhead. As soon as this infantry group reached the open stretch of road in front of the forest, Ukraine immediately activated its plan to intercept the reinforcements. 120mm mortar units positioned west of Avdiivka opened fire simultaneously, creating a barrage of shells that rained down on the very road the Russian infantry was using. Shells fell continuously, creating large explosions that shook the ground and sent dust billowing up to obscure the entire area. Infanteria was a force lie flat, completely pinned down, unable to advance or even change formation. The reinforcement, which was the last hope to save the armored spearhead, was almost completely stopped in its tracks. While the infantry line was paralyzed, Ukraine moved to deliver the final blow. The remaining FPV drones, held in reserve, launched simultaneously from multiple directions. They flew close to the ground and used bushes to avoid radar, then sprang up when they approached the Russian tank formation. A large FPV drone slammed into the jamming system of the last remaining operational T-90. The precise strike instantly disabled all of the tank's electronics. The T-90M became completely blind and deaf on the battlefield. Seizing the opportunity, a smaller FPV drone immediately darted in from the left flank. Slipping through the gap in the ERA armor on the hull, a gap that had been cracked during the previous skirmish. The drone penetrated inside in just a second, then exploded right in the center of the ammunition compartment. The entire ammunition supply in the automatic loader detonated in a chain reaction, creating a flash as bright as reverse fireworks. A deafening boom reverberated throughout the forest, and the T-90M's turret was blown more than 4 meters into the air before crashing next to the wrecked vehicle, rolling on the ground in a cloud of billowing black smoke. That was the moment that marked the complete collapse of the Russian armored spearhead. Immediately, Ukrainian forces seized the opportunity. Seeing their opponents completely neutralized, Ukrainian mobile infantry surged forward from the front trenches. They moved in a dispersed formation, closing in while locking down the Russian retreat line. Machine gun teams fired accurately at groups of Russian soldiers trying to run to the rear, while additional FPV drones continued to fly low to prevent any attempts to regroup. Chaos in the Russian formation grew. Some units tried to retreat, others were cut off and lost contact, unable to coordinate. In less than 15 minutes, all 7 of Russia's most modern T-90M tanks, along with 3 BMP-3s and numerous other support vehicles, were completely wiped out from the Kirovsk forest area. An estimated 17 soldiers were killed, and more than 50 surviving soldiers were captured. This offensive demonstrated the brutality of modern warfare. The ambush at Kirovsky ended in smoke and fire, but it was the capture of a large number of prisoners that opened a path of hope. The surviving Russian soldiers were not just prisoners of war. They became an important bargaining chip in efforts to bring home Ukrainian soldiers who had been held captive for months without news. President Volodymyr Zelensky affirmed that Ukraine is pushing to resume prisoner exchanges with the goal of reuniting 1,200 Ukrainians with their families. And in that context, the victory at Kirovsky is not only militarily significant, it became a rare humanitarian opportunity, igniting hope for families who have waited anxiously and desperately for months. Amidst the battlefield, where gunfire and destruction reign daily, one thing remains unquenchable: the belief that human dignity and life must come first. And in Avdiivka, after that fierce battle, this belief was reaffirmed. No matter how harsh the battlefield, the ultimate priority is to bring soldiers back to their homes. Glory to Ukraine!